What if a creature died 42,000 years ago and its blood is still liquid today? That's not a metaphor. That's not a headline exaggeration. Scientists extracted actual liquid blood from a foe that died before the last ice age peaked, before Stonehenge, before the music pyramids, before the earliest known writing, before any civilization we've ever named, and the blood flowed. This is the story of Badagai, a baby horse, a 42,000-year-old specimen so perfectly preserved that it changed what scientists believed was biologically possible. The Badagai Depression in northeastern Siberia is not a place most people ever think about. It is a massive crater nearly a kilometer wide carved into the permafrost by thawing and erosion. Locals call it the mouth of hell. The permafrost walls collapse inward every year, and swallowing the land above and exposing everything that has been frozen inside. Music, mammoth bones, ancient trees, ice age sediment. The depression sits in the Sakha Republic, one of the coldest inhabited regions on Earth, where winter temperatures regularly drop below -50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ground has been frozen solid for longer than most civilizations have existed. Yakutsk, the nearest major music city, is home to researchers who have turned this frozen landscape into one of the most productive paleontological zones on the planet. Every summer, the thaw advances. Every summer, the mouth of hell opens a little wider. And in the summer of 2018, it gave up something extraordinary. A team from the Northeastern Federal University in Yakutsk was surveying the depression when they spotted dark fur protruding from the frozen mud. At first glance, the size suggested a small animal, maybe a calf, maybe a large dog. But as they carefully excavated the find, brushing away sediment layer by layer with the kind of patience that Ice Age fieldwork demands, the shape became undeniable. 4 legs, a mane, hooves, a foe, complete, music intact, frozen in time. They named it Badagai after the depression where it was found. And when they ran the first tests, the number that came back stopped the room. 42,000 years old. To understand why that number matters, consider what was happening on Earth. 42,000 years ago, Neanderthals were still alive, still hunting, still burying their dead. Music still coexisting uneasily with the modern humans spreading west across Eurasia. Those modern humans had only recently reached Europe. Music, the last glacial maximum. At the coldest, most extreme phase of the Ice Age, music was still thousands of years away. Woolly mammoths roamed in massive herds across the northern hemisphere. Cave lions hunted the open grasslands. Giant deer carried antlers wider than a car. Woolly rhinoceros browsed the frozen steppe. The world was unrecognizable. And in the middle of all of that, a baby horse was born. It probably lived for only a few days. Researchers examining the teeth and bone structure determined Badagai was between 1 and 2 weeks old at death. It still had its milk teeth. Its muscles hadn't fully developed. Music. It was entirely dependent on its mother, not yet capable of the flight response that would define its species. How it died is uncertain. Music. There are no signs of predation, no bite marks, no defensive injuries. Music. No evidence that a predator was involved. The most likely explanation is that the FO fell into a natural trap, a mudslide, a boggy depression, cold, fast-moving water from a seasonal melt. The permafrost environment, music of the Ice Age mammoth steppe, was full of hazards for young animals. The same frozen ground that preserved Badagai would have been treacherous terrain for a newborn still learning to navigate the world. Whatever happened, music, it was sudden, and the cold did the rest. The body froze before decomposition could begin. Mud sealed it. Ice locked it in. And for 42,000 years, Badagai waited. When scientists examined the music specimen in detail, what they found was extraordinary. Even by the standards of Siberian permafrost discovery, music which had already produced remarkable finds, the skin was intact. And the hooves were intact. The tail hair and mane were preserved, still showing color and texture. The internal organs were still present inside the body cavity, compressed but identifiable. The overall condition of the body was so complete that early photographs of the specimen were difficult to process emotionally. This was not a skeleton, not a cast, not a reconstruction. This was the animal itself. And when researchers carefully extracted fluid from the heart region and surrounding tissue, they confirmed what early analysis had suggested. Liquid blood, not a stain, not a residue. Actual fluid containing red blood cells preserved in a state researchers described as unlike anything previously recovered from an Ice Age specimen. The oldest liquid blood ever recorded from any creature anywhere on Earth. This matters enormously. Blood is not just a dramatic headline, it's a biological archive. The proteins within it record how the animal's body functioned. The cellular structures speak to physiology that bones and skin alone cannot reveal. And the genetic material potentially locked inside music, each red blood cell represents a level of molecular detail that paleontologists rarely get access to from specimens of any age, let alone one pushing 42,000 years. The Lenskaya horse, the subspecies Batagai belonged to, vanished from the Earth thousands of music years ago, but its biology is now partially readable in ways that weren't possible before this discovery. Scientists also recovered urine from the body preserved in the bladder for over 4 decades of millennia. Muscle tissue with intact fiber structure visible under a microscope. Also skin samples yielding high-quality genetic material, each one a data point, each one telling a different part of the same story. The species Bad Guy belonged to is called Equus lenensis, the Lenskaya horse. It was smaller than most modern horses, stockier, built low and wide with a heavy coat adapted to extreme cold and the sparse, tough vegetation of the mammoth steppe. It was one of the primary prey animals of the Ice Age ecosystem, hunted by cave lions, wolves, early humans, and short-faced bears. Fast enough to evade, but common enough that predators specialized in targeting them. Ancient humans didn't just hunt horses, they painted them. Cave art across Europe, Lascaux in France, Altamira in Spain, and dozens of other sites depicts horses in remarkable and sometimes stunning detail. Spotted patterns, running herds. Individual animals rendered with an accuracy that suggests direct, intimate observation. Scientists have long debated whether these depictions were realistic portraits or stylized symbols. The genetic evidence from frozen specimens like Batagai, music, is now helping answer that question directly. DNA extracted from bad tissue included coat color genes, and the patterns they encoded aligned closely with the spotted, light-coated horses depicted in Ice Age cave art. Those ancient painters weren't working from imagination. They were recording what they saw. The genome also revealed something broader. Lenskaya horses were part of an ancient population that contributed genetic material to domestic horses thousands of years later. The horse humans first domesticated roughly 5,500 years ago on the Eurasian steppe. The animal that pulled chariots, he carried armies, enabled trade networks that stretched across continents, and fundamentally transformed the trajectory of human civilization, carries traces of these Ice Age ancestors in its DNA. Music Batagai is not just an extinct curiosity, it is part of the story of the animal that built the ancient world. The science of preservation helps explain why any of this is even possible. Permafrost is not simply frozen ground. It is biological deep storage, a natural cryogenic system that operates on geological timescales. When temperatures stay consistently below freezing, the microbial activity that drives decomposition is effectively halted. Cellular structures, music, remain intact. Proteins hold their shape. Even delicate music fluids under the right conditions do not evaporate, oxidize, or break down. As the key is speed and consistency. The FO's body had to freeze quickly before internal bacteria, which continue working for a brief window after death, could begin breaking down tissue from the inside. And it had to stay frozen continuously for 42,000 years without interruption. A single thaw referees cycle creates ice crystals that rupture cell walls and destroy the very structures, music, that make soft tissue preservation possible. Siberia's permafrost, music in regions like the Batagai Depression, has maintained those stable sub-zero conditions for longer than modern humans have existed as a species until now. Climate change is accelerating permafrost thaw across the Arctic at a music rate that has alarmed scientists working in this field. The Batagai Depression itself grows measurably larger every year. The walls retreat. The floor sinks. Ancient sediment that was locked in place for millennia is music suddenly exposed to summer air and sunlight. This is why the pace of discovery, music in Siberia, has accelerated dramatically over the past decade. Specimens that would have stayed buried for another 1,000 years are music surfacing now, ahead of schedule, because the deep freeze is failing. but the same process, music, that reveals them begins destroying them the moment they appear. Researchers' music are now racing against the thaw. Once exposed, specimens that survived 42,000 years can degrade in weeks, sometimes days. The liquid blood that astonished scientists in 2018, music, existed only because the foe was recovered quickly after exposure, days longer, and it may have been gone entirely. Badagai is now housed in a research facility in Yakutsk and home to one of the world's most significant collections of permafrost-preserved specimens. Alongside the foss sit other extraordinary finds from the same frozen archive. A 28,000-year-old cave lion cub with fur and whiskers intact. A 40,000-year-old severed wolf head with brain tissue preserved inside the skull. And woolly, music mammoth specimens carrying recoverable genetic material that has already contributed to active research programs. Scientists at the facility are pursuing music, something that once sounded like science fiction. The possibility of reconstructing music extinct Ice Age species using recovered DNA. The Mammoth Project is the most publicly music discussed, but the horse program is quietly advancing. The quality of biological material from Badagai, music, particularly the blood and intact cellular tissue, has given researchers molecular data they simply didn't have before. Music. It is changing the questions they're able to ask. Whether full de-extinction is ever achievable remains genuinely debated. But the genetic library being built from these specimens, the growing understanding of what these animals were, how they were physiologically constructed, and how they survived one of the harshest environments in Earth's history is real, and it is growing year by year. Badagai died alone, probably confused, probably cold, in a world that no longer exists, a world of giants and predators and open grasslands stretching to the horizon in every direction. A world that was, music about to start warming slowly at first, then irreversibly. The mammoths would go, the cave lions would go, the giant deer would go. The mammoth steppe itself is that vast cold ecosystem that had sustained life across the northern hemisphere for 100,000 years, would collapse and vanish. The Linskaya horse would go with it. But this one fold, by accident of mud and cold and time, didn't entirely disappear. 42,000 years later, its blood still ran. The past isn't always buried. Sometimes it's just frozen, waiting for the right moment to come back.